pre-2014, when Sandeep, it almost felt like there were terror attacks every other weekend.
Absolutely, Aditya. That was a different India we lived in. It was like, we had internalized this whole thing of terror attacks that, acha, either don't go to crowded places, especially not in festival time, or, oops, sorry. Yeah, don't go to crowded marketplaces during festivals and all because they're liable to be bomb blasts. If you're in a five-star hotel, these are the drills to do because terrorists will come after you. So it was, part of the daily life in India. Of course, that all changed. Sorry?
It was normalized. It was like, this is our new normal.
It was, and my parents, like I told you, my parents live in Jalwari Vihar. At least they did back then, not very far from where Ratanji lives. You had a guy coming and staying in a five-star hotel there, wrecking this colony where armed forces, ex-servicemen, veterans lived. Many of them from the 1971 war. They wanted to send terrorists there to gun them down. And my father, I remember what he did. He just pulled out his pistol and he started, oiling it and servicing it because he knew the state was not going to be there to protect them. Of course, the Maharashtra police did show up after the Headley confessions. That was one of the targets. But, the point is that this had all been internalized. That, acha, ye to hoga hi. The state cannot do anything to protect us. We are at the mercy of Pakistan's terror infrastructure, and we need Aman ki Asha. We have to live in peace with Pakistan. All of that. So it was all normalized.
And no response. Remember? I mean, I remember during 26/11, there was so much rage, but there was a zero response from the government. But Pahalgam, of course, has come as a shock because it was so brutal. Let me just say this very clearly. People were identified, they were separated, segregated on the basis of their religion, Hindus and Muslims. And then they were asked to recite the kalma. And if they failed to recite the kalma, then there was no conversation, no negotiation. They were shot dead at point blank range. So this is what happened. And it was completely horrific. We have survivors who have recounted every bit of this incident. I mean, it's a miracle that they are still able to cogently remember these things, because remember, this is a little boy who saw his father shot dead in front of him, a newly married couple, two of them, in fact, who had just been married in February, and one couple, Lieutenant Narwal from the Navy, who had been literally married 6 days. So this was just unspeakable, the kind of horror these families have experienced. And of course, our thoughts and prayers with them as they make the long road to recovery, as they take that road. But India is fuming. And it's been a while since we've seen India get this angry. So I'm going to call in Suhel Seth, who's always angry, but he's even angrier now.
No, I'm not angry. It's just disgusting what's happened. And I think, let's not beat around the bush. So 3 things have happened to my mind. And Sandeep and Abhijit are the experts here on defense and strategy. There has been a colossal intelligence failure, whether we like it or not. Okay, this shouldn't have happened. And, it's not as if Pahalgam is at the border and someone can just infiltrate. So I don't know what's happened, where it's happened. I'll wait to hear from both Sandeep and Abhijit. Number 2, it's quite clear that the agenda was what I call economic terrorism. See, when bin Laden did what he did on 9/11, he inflicted damage on New York, which is where I am right now. So New York was and is the commercial capital of the world. So he wanted to economically cripple the United States, which he did. In the wake of it, terrible things happened. And the third is the fact that these people said that, drop your trousers and then we'll see whether you're Hindu, Muslim, recite the kalma, blah, blah, blah. It's quite clear that they wanted to engender communal riots, communal violence in India, which would then keep their narrative flowing even further, saying that, look, Muslims in India are unsafe. This is my reading from a strategic point of view as to what happened. But we cannot do the following. A, we cannot absolve ourselves or whoever is responsible for the colossal intelligence failure. I think our response is going to be calibrated as all responses which have a military angle to them should be. And number three, what is really sad for me personally is that you have destroyed the economic climate of Jammu and Kashmir, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. And you've seen that people have emptied the valley, people have stopped traveling, people have moved out. So, actually, who you've harmed are the people you ostensibly wanted to laud, protect, and nurture, the Kashmiris. So, this is my initial reading of the issue. Unmute yourself. Oof, this girl, man, I'm telling you.
Rata Chadaji, I wanted to know, learn from you, what do you make of this segregation of people based on their religion?
See, Advaita, for the first time, you have a situation where they deliberately spared women and children. It was deliberate. They wanted them to suffer. The stunt that you go and tell Modi is just one stunt. You won't leave all the women alone of 28 people who died just because you were kind. No, it was not kindness. They wanted them to suffer all their lives. This is also similar to the mindset of 1990 when the Exodus went to the peak when they said Raleigh, Chalev, Ghalib. So either you join us or you be part of us or you go or you will be killed. Not only that, they said, leave your women behind. You can go. So this contempt for women, this contempt of these people is so obvious that you cannot really hide this. That this was deliberate creation of frustration of anger in the people, and we think that they were it was some odd overkill. No, because this is the way they treat the prisoners of war, whether women or children. The history right from the beginning of this jihad is that you treat Male Ganimat and you treat that women very poorly, right from the old times to the present time. It has not changed. You look at the Pakistani Hindus, the way the girls are treated there, the way they are picked up, converted, raped, or married off even at the minor age, and then the court says nothing done. No doubt is intelligence failure, I would say, right from the local admin. You can't simply say with a very straight face that we didn't know that area was open. It is stupid. Pahalgam is very small. I have gone the number of times. In that small village-like place, hundreds of people are going to a certain area. Were police sleeping? Was the district collector sleeping? No. Either they were complicit in the entire thing or they were totally sleeping on the job. It could be possible that communication channels or different intelligence engines are not working together. But yes, this was a failure, no doubt, and people, the head should roll because all the efforts of last from 2019 have been lost because of the way it has this particular situation was created. And same thing happened in 1947, 1971. We should not forget. Hindu women, Hindu people have suffered in all this partition time, prior partition time, and even later in Bangladesh. Now it's happening in Bengal also. This demon of jihadism must be called out directly, unapologetically, and should be treated as such. It's a poison. Everything else is just illustration of that particular philosophy. Unless you accept this and see that out with jihadism, whatever it is, you may be called Islamophobe, you may be called whatever, but these people wanted to call that. The people who say no, 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 it was not, it is not religion. They are saying it's religion. All the Talibanis, all the people across the world who claim to be, great Islamic devotees, they claim that we are doing it because of Islam. They quote the scriptures. We keep on saying, no, no, bacha, aisa nahi hai, tum galat samajh rahe ho. That is not the way. You accept the bitter truth as it is, only then you can treat the disease.
Right. Abhijit, since you track Pakistan so closely, I was curious to know about the timing of these attacks. What do you make of the timing?
See, first, I'm not sure there was an intel failure. Intel failure is when you have the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. You can never know everything. Not knowing when something's going to happen doesn't translate into an intel failure. Did we think something was going to happen? Logically, yes. Because there were three things intersecting out here. Every time Pakistan is in a very, very, very bad place, they will resort to a terror attack where they're completely isolated. They will also resort to a terror attack when things are going very, very well and you seem to be close to some kind of a solution. Because they don't want a solution, you see. So the thing is, tensions escalate. The international community, so-called, doesn't want some kind of a solution, doesn't want a flare-up. So they force you to the negotiating table and Pakistan claims a domestic victory. But that particular situation has been ongoing for the last 7-8 years now. The second situation that we know of, the second intersect we know of, why an attack was most likely here, is because every time an American president or vice president has visited in the last 15, 20 years, uh, 25 years really, some kind of an attack has happened. When Bill Clinton came in 98, 99, the Chatti Singhpura massacre happened. We all know now that it was timed to coincide with Bill Clinton's visit because, you know, it internationalizes the issue, which is the main thing Pakistan wants. Um, then when George Bush came in 2006, they weren't able to time it properly, but the Doda attack, the Doda massacre happened within about a month of that visit. Similarly, Barack Obama's visits were followed by high intensity insurgencies, but they couldn't target civilians. Well, you know, in those days it was tougher because civilians were all locked up at home. There was curfew all the time, right? Uh, then when Donald Trump came, the exact same day he comes, the Delhi riots begin. So there is a pattern which tells us the difficulty is in knowing where an attack like this is going to happen or if it will. Because remember, Barack Obama's visit, like I said, it had some high intensity incidents and shootings and things like that, but it wasn't a massacre. This is number one. This is number three. So we kind of knew it was going to happen. We weren't sure it would happen. And can I just say this? Our response to this particular attack was rapid in a way we haven't seen in a very, very long time. You look at how long it used to take to respond a few years back, even. Nothing here. A drone was was diverted within 15 minutes. It was over the area of operations in about 50 minutes. Uh, Same time, you had you know, a lot of uh, 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 the troops who were meant to protect that place were assembled, or rather, you can't have troops everywhere all the time, right? The Kacha road itself takes about 30-40 minutes to negotiate from the highway. So they were there within about 50 minutes of the attack starting. So 30 minutes for the travel plus 20 minutes to gather the forces, for the drones to do the reconnaissance, and for them to finally come in. Not a bad response time. As opposed to, say, Pulwama, which was an intel failure. Somebody deserved to be sacked for that because there was a violation of road rules out there. And, you know, when I went to Kashmir then in 2019, in September 2019, after the abrogation happened, when I was coming out of that suicide bomber, the family didn't let me come in and talk to them, the suicide bomber's house, the Pulwama bomber's house. But when we joined the main road after that, exact same thing. Army convoy going, we are stopped fine. But then you come to the traffic intersection, the army convoy is in traffic jam with everybody else. Right? So there are intel failures. That was an operational failure. This time, I'm not yet seeing either intel or operational failure. Maybe it was an intel failure, but you can only have an intel failure when you have those pieces of intel. We're not sure we had those pieces of intel right now. Even with the benefit of hindsight, we're not able to see, other than the generic pattern, we're not able to see specifics of an attack.
Abhijit, one small point. My issue is that the local people who give that Blaze example that wo khul gaya tha, hame pata nahi chala, I don't believe that. That is
No,
what I
it's
say.
not.
Local admin,
It is not
local
true.
police. I am talking of those people.
It is not true, sir. This khul gaya tha, band ho gaya tha. You can't shut down a place like that.
Yes.
You know, give you a Delhi example, or say a Calcutta example. This is like trying to shut down that entire Victoria Memorial Park and things like that. You would have to put barricades around the entire, 100-acre meadow. It's more than 100 acres, that particular meadow. You can access it from everywhere. If you look at the tweet thread I did on the rapidity of our response, I put this video of a girl who had visited there 10 days prior.
Hmm.
And there was literally nobody actually stopping you from going there. If there was, there are many workarounds to it. Like the terrorists themselves didn't use the official paths to get there, it turns out. They actually hiked up the mountain and came down the mountain. So this thing that it was off limits, I'm not buying, and I don't know how you put such a huge place off limits.
Exactly.
Okay, Sandeep, let's get you in as our resident defense guy. You've tracked a lot of these terror attacks. What stands out for you in Pahalgam?
Which Sandeep? Unnithan or
Well,
Ghosh?
Advaita, this Pahalgam was different in a sense that over the last decade, there's almost been like an unwritten rule that civilians would not be targeted, and certainly not in Jammu and Kashmir, because all the previous targets which have led to retaliation from India, counter-strikes from India in 2016 and in 2019 have been military targets. In 2016, you struck a army camp in Puri. In 2019, it was that CRPF convoy that was attacked with a suicide bomber. But this time it was a civilian target where civilians from all over India, tourists had come there, and they were identified, they were targeted, they were shot at point blank range, and worse. And this is something you have to look out for. The fact is that they had body cams on, these terrorists, and these terrorists are known to have taken body cams footage in the past as well, in past attacks on army convoys. They create those videos and they circulate it just to create that climate of fear. And this is what they seem to have done in this attack as well. But Advaita, the biggest warning actually came from across the border when General Asim Munir, less than a week prior to this horrific attack, he gave out that speech in Pakistan, very uncharacteristic of a Pakistan army chief to speak the way he did, where he speaks about India and Pakistan, the two-nation theory, Hindus are different from us, all of that. That itself, that was like a dog whistle, and that should have triggered off an alarm that, possibly there's something big that's coming. And, and Asim Munir is actually the character to be looked at very closely, Advaita, because what is different in Pahalgam again, and different from all other previous attacks, is that, in the past, we have always been talking about, was it a Jaish attack? Was it a Lashkar attack? Was it a TRP? Was it an HUM, Huji and all that? This time, after Pahalgam, the onus, the finger of blame has pointed directly at the Pakistan army and directly at General Asim Munir. It's never happened in the past that a serving army chief has been targeted this way. The weight of public opinion and indeed, of course, of the government is ranged against the Pakistan military. And, it's like all these proxies that get carefully cultivated over the last 3-4 decades, whether it's Dawood Ibrahim or Indian Mujahideen, all of this seems to have fallen off. And today the Pakistan military is directly in the firing line. And that is what, to my mind, is really different about Pahalgam. And this is why Asim Munir is possibly one of the stupidest Pakistani military chiefs in 75 years. He's literally stood up and he's given that speech. It's almost like an admission of guilt that something major is going to happen. And 6 days later, you have this sensational, horrific terror attack that's taken place. And this is where the Pakistan military, I'm sure there must be a number of generals within the Pakistan military who possibly holding their heads in disbelief at what's unfolding right now.
But will there be an internal coup, you think? Because there's some suggestion that...
don't discount that possibility, Advaita. The Pakistan military, if you look at it, it works in very, very mysterious ways. And especially with generals like this, there's a lot of discontent within the ranks. We still don't know, for instance, after nearly 4 decades, who actually assassinated General Zia with that crate of mangoes,
Yeah.
And all of the dictators. And here is something that Asim Munir should remember, the fact that Pakistan has had these 4 overt dictators. I call overt, there are 2 types of dictators in Pakistan. The overt dictators who actually grab power, and you have the closet dictator like Munir and all of the others before him. Munir wants to be a bit of both. He wants to be a closet dictator at the same time, step out and try and, restore things in a manner that he sees fit. The hard state thing, for instance, what he's done. But I'm sure there's a lot of discontent within the ranks about what he's done, because he has taken Pakistan into the abyss with this terror attack, and where the Pakistan military is now literally in the line of fire. And whatever retaliation comes, it is going to be against the Pakistan military. It's not going to be against the, the cutouts and the groups that they have cultivated so assiduously over the last few decades, just to ensure that the Pakistan military is never targeted. The proxies, it was all about that. And thanks to Munir, now the Pakistan military is directly in our crosshairs.
Adwaita. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Go ahead.
Can I just add very quickly? A lot of my friends in Pakistan are telling me that the generals are, the corps commanders are, a lot of them are very upset. A lot of the leaking of information that is happening is directly authorized by the corps commanders. At a time like this, the number of Pakistani YouTubers going against their army is, they don't do things like that. They are not saying what they're saying without having the protection of some corps commander or some clique within the army, right? So that.
Okay, Sandeep, coming to you about this, there have been some actions that have been taken by the Indian government, the the Indus Water Treaty, and of course Pakistan, we already know, is going through an economic crisis. They're pretty much a bankrupt country that goes around with a begging bowl all over the world. So how does this work out for them in terms of their economy?
I think it's early days yet. Sorry, which Sandeep now? Sorry, my Okay. So, in terms of economy, I think all these are signaling which has been done so far. We can go on analyzing whether the Indus Treaty can be so easily rescinded or it can impact, that. I think that is a lot of that is innuendos and which is happening in the social media space. The actual impact of that, it'll take time. It cannot be done overnight. But I think these are signals, and essentially, I think to buy time for the real retaliation in whatever form it comes, somewhere down the line. People expected it to happen immediately. I don't think that can happen. Even Pulwama, Abhijit can correct me, took about almost 2 weeks before there was a retaliation. And this time it has to be it's not only about your preparation, but it's also about creating the diplomatic efforts, everything else which has to go in from whatever action they are going to take. Even if it is very strong economic action, that will require getting some kind of mobilization of global opinion. The global opinion right now, I think, would be far more amenable to these sort of actions than it would have been before. But Indian government will have to work at it very, very carefully. And that brings me to the point, we were discussing whether this was an Intel failure or not. Those are, I think, to some extent, maybe academic questions. But the basic point is, it is a huge setback, whichever way you look at it. And the good part here is that I think, barring some lone voices, social media handles like INC Kerala and other people, the opposition is largely aligned in this thing. Opposition is aligned. We have, ignore Mehbooba Mufti and others, the ruling party, National Conference, I think it is making the right sort of, giving the right positive vibes. So there is a lot going for it. And this cannot be, just a one-off action like Pulwama or Balakot to wham bam and then move on. I think this has to be far more definitive, and it will be long protracted, long drawn. So even the economic actions, we have to think through it very carefully. And on the economy front, only point Advaita I'll add is, India also cannot act in isolation. There is China. There is this thing. So, there are other dynamics which are happening parallelly. We have to factor everything in before doing. You don't want China to step in with Pakistan and help them. So there are all those elements. It's complex.
Okay, so let me just Sandeep, you're of course the Navy expert. Is this true? What Srinivas is saying? INS Vikrant aircraft carrier.
Yes, Adwaita. The Vikrant has it's not been exactly pulled back. It was on a sortie and it's come back. This is not to suggest that I know what the operational planning and deployment of Vikrant is going to be, but this is part of the entire options that India has put out there. There's a lot of activity that's going on, as you well know, that there are there's an Indian Air Force exercise that's on as we speak. The Indian Navy has been conducting missile firing drills in the Arabian Sea. The Army has been moving around. Of course, we've all been told not to report those deployments or movements for good reason. The fact is that all of this heightened activity kind of overloads Pakistan's command and control system as well. They don't know if there is going to be a military response, which direction that's going to come from. So it's all part of that fog of war strategy, I think, that our side is putting out. And one of that is, of course, moving these assets very rapidly.
Okay. We seem to have lost Sandeep, but let me get Pallavi on. Pallavi, we've got the layperson's perspective, the ordinary citizen, very angry, very upset, horrified by the religious identification, and then the brutal killing of these innocent civilians. You've been doing the rounds of government offices, meeting with people in political leadership. What are you picking up from the government?
See, this is the Modi movement. And remember when he came to power, I think 2014, he came on that pitch of having a very macho kind of a foreign policy as well. And, I remember he would always attack the UPA for being kind of weak on terror. So he knows that there's a lot of expectations. And if I don't know how many of you heard his Mann Ki Baat, he began by Mann Ki Baat by being extremely grim about the fact. And he used some words like, "Hum kathor jawab denge," and hum nyay layenge, hum justice karenge. But just to go back to what I pick up when I go to government sources, all of us want action. I saw Abhishek Banerjee of the Trinamool Congress saying, "Oh, we should go and bomb the POK and POK hame wapas lana chahiye." These are sentiments. Some of them are being said because they obviously want to cater to those sentiments. But all of you must be knowing this. Better than me, that it doesn't work like that. And the government knows that this is the time when people will expect immediate steps, but it doesn't happen like that. So they're going bit by bit. I think the most important point for the government at this point of time is to get the world opinion with them, which is there. But if they want to go in for a very strong military action, and that is what I pick up, they are saying we want big countries on our side, whether it's Israel, whether it's America. And just a little while back, I saw China kind of issue a statement which is suggesting that it's supporting Pakistan, and no surprises there. I don't know, was it Abhijit or someone who just raised this point about the China factor? Yeah, Sandeep did, about the China factor. Of course, India is aware of that. But India is also looking at diplomatic help, one, in case of military action, and second, economically also cripple Pakistan. It's not just India which will economically cripple Pakistan in terms of Indus Water Treaty. They also want the world to step in and cripple Pakistan. So the public opinion which is being generated in Pakistan is, why should we have to pay the price for what the army is doing or what our politicians are doing?
Suhel, you're abroad right now. Have you encountered any conversation about this terror attack?
Yeah, a lot. In fact, both Americans and non-Americans, means NRIs and that ilk. So what's happening here is a bit of a duality. If you speak to the average Indian who's now in America, who lives here, they're saying ki bhai inko attack karo, enough is enough. The Americans are supportive of India. They generally believe that Pakistan is a state that promotes and supports terror. But their belief is that, will war sort anything out? There is a third very quaint view, which is that India should now start behaving like Israel, qua Pakistan. Now, these are all views. It's very important. It's very easy to have a view when you have nothing at stake. So, everyone has an opinion and what else. So the thing is, we need to worry about two things here. One is, if we attack, what is the retaliation going to be? See, remember that old Bernard Shaw saying, when whales fight, shrimps are eaten. So you have to worry about that. I'm not saying don't attack or attack. It's not my place to say that. The second is, how are you going to long term address and solve the Jammu and Kashmir problem? Because all said and done, there is a certain amount of regression that has come into the whole environment and the ecosystem within Kashmir, if not in Jammu. How are you going to address that? Because what is going to happen is, economically, Kashmir is going to be brutally crippled as we go along. You'll see the same situation where people are fearful of traveling, not going there. So that is going to harm the common man in Kashmir, who may be willing fodder for Pakistan to, either recruit or to adopt or to, kind of create a cohort of. So these are some of the, I don't have answers to any of these, but these are some of the real serious issues that we need to contend with. Because if you look at it logically, these are the things that are going to play out. I'm not too worried about international opinion and all, because, when Vajpayee ji did what he did with the testing of the nuclear bomb, we had a whole host of international opinion against us, including America. We have to do what is important for India. So that is something that the government needs to communicate. The government can't be namby-pamby and saying, no, we'll follow this person's advice or that person's advice. No one gives a toss. But how are you going to long-term recalibrate the Kashmir issue? And how are you going to punish Pakistan, recognizing the fact that it's a rogue state and it doesn't care how, when, and in which place it will retaliate? So these are some of the concern areas.
All right. Abhijit, there was a question. I thought it was interesting seeing how things are going with between us and Bangladesh. What is the possibility of like a true front opening, and what level of coordination, if at all, what there exists between Bangladesh and Pakistan, who've been showing a lot of friendly vibes lately?
Look, Bangladesh is trying very hard to give the impression that it matters. The more it becomes irrelevant, the more it's trying desperately to seem like it matters. The problem is it doesn't. Okay, you look at their air force, you can literally crush them within the space of 3 hours, less. Just one squadron. They bought the MiG-29, and even that was too expensive for them to run. This is not a very serious military. It's more a military meant for internal security than it is meant for external defense. The only real external defense they can do is maybe against Burma. So this notion of a second front or whatever is not really feasible. In the longer term, can they be a problem as a staging area for terror attacks and things like that? Absolutely, yes, they can. In fact, the Manipur violence also has quite a significant input from Bangladesh, but that is more in terms of a lack of ability to police those borders than anything we're seeing in terms of active support and things like that. Even now, as far as my sources tell me on the ground out there. So Bangladesh, the caliber of the threat that some people would like us to believe. For simple example, Mohammed Yunus went to Beijing and made that speech after which we cut off transit, right? That all 7 northeastern states have to go through us. We are the Bay of Bengal. We are the Indian Ocean, or whatever he said. He was treated like dirt in China. Nobody took him seriously. Did you hear of any Chinese investment coming into Bangladesh after that? Nothing. It's not a place where China feels it can operate. They've been sold, a farm in the air by the Pakistanis. They realize, and the Chinese learned this lesson much quicker than the Americans did. The Americans went on falling for these Pakistani promises and never got anything in return. The Chinese cracked the whip after, have you noticed, after COVID, the Pakistanis just aren't getting the kind of diplomatic, moral, financial, military support from China that they're used to. And Bangladesh again, China has essentially written this off as an American stooge government. So, when the coup happened, people were saying this was China doing it and America doing it. Yeah, how do China and America carry out a coup? Yeah, their interests are not aligned. So this fellow is seen and his government are seen as American stooges, and the Chinese want to have nothing to do with them.
Interesting. Sandeep, Unnithan, do you echo that? Sandeep?
Yes.
Unnithan.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last name Advaita, because
I did say Sandeep Unnithan.
Sandeep with E, Sandeep with I.
No, Unni, bulao usko Unni.
I know Unni. I'll just call him Unni then. Okay, Unni, what do you think? This is happening. I mean, this Bangladesh factor.
No, absolutely not. I completely agree with Abhijit. The Bangladesh does not, it's not a conventional military threat in that sense. The only threat that East Pakistan has really posed, first East Pakistan and now Bangladesh has posed to India, has been radicalization and, of course, a launch pad for terror attacks from, emanating from their territory, threatening India's northeast. That's primarily their, it's nuisance value actually. It can divert some of our forces, but as a conventional threat, as a conventional military threat, it's not a threat at all. It's primarily, it's a nuisance value kind of thing. It can be handled by the Eastern Command and the Assam Rifles alone. It's not so much of a major threat. But, like I said, the problem of Bangladesh is different. It's the fact that it's a staging ground for Islamist forces, anti-India militant groups, which has always been from 1947. And that is why Sheikh Hasina was so critical for India. Her continuation in power in Bangladesh was so critical because we had 15 years of unstinted intelligence cooperation from Bangladesh, especially when it came to anti-India actors based in Bangladesh. But now with Yunus and his, unarchy, as one of my friends called it, we have a headache. It's not a serious military threat, but it's more of a migrate. One will be taken care of. Not so distant.
See, I'd like to make 2 points. One is that Bangladesh, of course, is a nuisance, nothing more than that. It just needs a sweat, that's all. China also, I don't think China has in any war with India right from 48 onwards, it has ever supported Pakistan directly. Somebody said they applied, supplied certain missiles to Pakistan. Well, Pakistan had wonderful American aircrafts earlier also in the last wars. And do the Pakistan army want to become Zelensky? To become Zelensky, you need a huge backup like America, which China will not give. It will just use it so that this client state is safe enough for that passage to go through. That is point one. So worry about them, I think, is overblown. My more difficult issue is the 2.5, 0.5, the 2.5 front. In Karnataka and Bengal, when there was protest and the Pakistani flag was being insulted or burnt, the local government arrested those people who are doing it. Are we Pakistan's friend? No, it's a declared enemy. Then we have riots in Mumbai when the Pakistan flag was being burnt in Mumbai. Forget about other places. So this is more worrying that there are still forces in India who are ready to support Pakistan. Of course, is all kind of nonsensical videos on Instagram and Twitter, etc., trying to extol the virtues of Pakistan, extol the virtues of secularism and being cool with everybody and all that. See, there are certain times when you have to hold your tongue. Even if you want to say that there is something we should not go to extreme, there is certain way of doing it, or keep quiet at the time when people calm down. Now, if you look at this ambivalent attitude, I would say that for the first time in Kashmir, there has been a pro-India protest. For the first time, the Bandh was in against the terrorists, always has been for the terrorists. All through last decades and decades of the rule, for the first time there is a Bandh, which may be selfish for some people, which may be just a drama for some people. For me, it's a very good change that we have at least seen it, whether rightly or wrongly, that the people are standing with Bharat, they're standing against the terrorists. We should appreciate that. Unless we do that, how do we find those minority of people who are truly with India by behaving in a certain way just out of anger? So we have to control our tongue. We have to see how things evolve, and we should respect that the sentiment of people. They, as I said, they may be selfish. They may be worried about losing tourism, but they are there. Were they not worried earlier? They were, and government will stand by them. And this change, I think, is a big change we should appreciate. Apart from whatever happened, there will be certain stooges everywhere, whether it's Kashmir, whether it's Bengal, whether it's any other place. We had in officers who were sold for by Dawood when the RDS landed in Mumbai. We can't forget that. So those judgments, etc., will be there. But we look at the overall environment. I think it is much better than it was earlier. Of course, some advantages lost, but we have to be balanced and not, take extreme stand when things are really the way they are going right now.
Okay. I just want to make two quick points. We have to leave. After 26/11, there was a book launch many weeks later at the Chambers Terrace, but the Chambers wing and the old wing wasn't yet handed over back, in the sense it was still under repair. And I was sitting at the Chambers, and Mr. J.K. Dutt, who was the NSG commander, hopped by and then, sat down with me. And I was asking him, I said, what do you actually think happened on 26/11? And he says it was sleeper cells, and the beat cop intelligence had been marginalized and had vanished from Bombay streets. And he says, because there is no way that Kasab and all his Johnnies could have come all the way from Karachi by boat and launched the attack. So his point was, obviously there is some local support, and those sleeper cells may still be active. This is then. My point here is, the traitors in India today are actually of an intellectual bent. They are the real traitors. They are the ones who are actually poisoning people's minds. They are the ones who are bringing communal angles. So all these woke liberals who tell you, oh, please don't make it communal, please don't make it communal. By saying make it communal, you're making it communal. That's number one. Number two, they are using their YouTubing nonsense and platforms to actually incite, stoke, and engender the worst kind of hatred. The divisiveness of this country is not happening by real Hindus and real Muslims. It's happening because of this ilk of people whose fathers, as far as money is concerned, are employed by some people overseas. So that has to be identified. Home Ministry and information broadcasting, please don't do this, please. No one gives a toss. You have to identify these traitors. And Advaita, there's a difference between having an opinion and foisting an agenda. These people are foisting an agenda. I can disagree with the government. I totally have said that it's an intelligence failure. That if I were the Prime Minister, I would have pulled up the Home Minister and Ajit Doval to account. I've said that. I don't care. But my agenda is a pro-Bharat, pro-India agenda. I'm saying this because I genuinely love my country, and I believe Pakistan is a rogue state and will remain a rogue state. But what do you do about people who are foisting an agenda on this country? What do you do about those people? They are the real snakes in the grass. So we are actually not only worried about external enemies. We also need to worry about the enemies within. And the enemies who tinker with your mind are far more dangerous than who tinker with guns. And as long as we understand that, we'll be in a better position. Because if you remember, on 11, I made it very clear, and I said, and that is being played back again, that the Home Minister is inept, that we have an incompetent government. Here, at least all said and done, the Home Minister was on a flight to Srinagar in less than 1 hour or 2 hours of the incident. The Prime Minister cut short his trip. You saw action. Although I still say, with due respect to Abhijit, and I understand his views about not being an intelligence failure, but I'm saying we need to worry about the enemies within. This is what will get onto the pages of international newspapers, international media. This is what gets quoted.
Yeah. In fact, I've been tracking Pakistani media, and every day there is some Indian politician or media personality or so-called religious leader who is being quoted verbatim on Pakistani media shows. as questioning India, as suggesting it's a false flag operation. Abhijit, come in very quickly. Suhail's referred to you as well in this. Why does this happen so persistently and even so quickly after such a horrific terror attack?
Look, this is their standard game. There isn't a single attack that's happened in India which they don't claim is false flag. Okay, every single attack that has happened, Chhatti Singhpura, the Chhatti Singhpura was a tactical mistake by the Pakistanis. They planned it. We know they planned it. They said, because they had a dual track strategy. They wanted to keep both the Punjab insurgency and the Kashmir insurgency in the boil. So they took a strategic decision that they are not going to kill Sikhs in Kashmir in order to keep both insurgencies on the boil. So when Chhatti Singhpura massacre happened, they suggested that India had carried it out to vitiate the atmosphere, and the New York Times also carried the same story, by the way. Okay, the same New York Times that now refuses to call them terrorists and calls them militants. That doesn't tell you it was an Islamic attack. It just says it was, a militant attack. Okay,
Right.
So this has been a very long pattern. There's nothing new about it. This is, this is the classic case of terrorists, the terror sponsor saying, well, we had nothing to do with it.
Pallavi, a lot of this gang comes from your fraternity. So why is that the case? I mean, if it's not on prime, earlier they used to be on mainstream TV. Now a lot of them have sort of moved on to YouTube and things like that. But the narrative, the messaging, it remains unchanged. Why is this such a big problem with the media?
And a lot of it, actually, Adwaita, they don't even put out. If you hear what they have to say on one-on-one and on the WhatsApp groups, you will be absolutely horrified.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was one, there is this group of journalists of Pakistan and India. It's called, So what happened, it all triggered off with one Pakistani journalist saying it's got nothing to do with religion. This terror attack had nothing to do with religion.
Her name is Nasim Zehra. Let's name names.
Yeah, I don't know her name.
She's a toxic viper.
So,
if you see a scorpion and Nasim Zehra first, kill Nasim Zehra first.
So you know about that WhatsApp group. So in that WhatsApp group, it all began by this Nasim Zehra saying that it's got nothing to do with religion. Then they, that obviously Indians journalists counted that, and then all of them walked out. There are many WhatsApp groups which are not so high profile, and some of the things I hear is so horrific because they began by saying, it had nothing to do with Hindus being targeted. And when we started pointing out that this case was definitely, like that, they don't listen to it. So now there are the usual suspects, the usual so-called liberal ones who, if you look at the YouTube links, you just look at their shows, they are now trying to downplay it as, let's blame the government for everything, it's the government to blame. And some of them actually echo what Robert Vadra said. They said, ye to hona hi tha.
I mean, can you imagine in this country, you are quoting Robert Vadra as the oracle of intellectual riposte? That should worry you. That should worry you. And including Pallavi Ghosh, who's again quoting Robert Vadra. That should worry you. This is the level of our intellectual dumbness and dumb-downedness, if I can use the phrase.
But Suhel, what I'm saying is that
now Vadra will decide military strategy.
What I'm saying is that what he said is something which has been echoed by many others of these so-called YouTubers.
I'm supporting you. I'm just telling you, you need to worry about your fraternity. You need to worry about your fraternity. People are now quoting Robert Vadra instead of army generals. You need to worry, Pallavi.
One interesting bite,
Next June, we're quoting Robert Vadra's assistant in order to promote a point of view.
And some of them linked it. Some of them also linked it to the passage of the Waqf bill. They said, "Ye karoge, ye to hona hi tha."
Yeah.
That is even. That's not.
I'm telling you, they're all. I can't use foul language here, but they're all rascals.
And my last point, I normally like the INC Congress, the Kerala Congress handle. I find it quite witty. But in the last 2 days, at least last 24 hours, I think it's really disgusting. And I've called them out also. One of them, for example, shows the Prime Minister talking, I think, to Nawaz Sharif and said, Ye to hona hi tha, suggesting, that they were your bum chums and that is. This is not the time for this. And it's a Kerala Congress handle. And some other Congress leaders.
My
which
only
Abhijit
thing,
has
I want to
called out,
say
yeah.
this and I want to leave. You will
Yes,
fall
say to me.
you will fall into a Pakistan agenda / trap
Absolutely.
if you allow this to become a communal issue. It is an
Exactly.
issue of terrorism without, and don't even now soft pedal the fact that religion has been used
Yes.
to target and kill people. So it is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that, terrorism has no religion. Bullshit. Terrorism has a religion because that religion has actually asked innocent people to identify their religion and kill
Yeah.
them. So please
No, and
don't
the
give me
same
this
people.
bullshit that terrorism has no religion. And I
Suhel, the
think,
same
1 minute,
people.
Pallavi, wait. And my advice to the people in this country is, now if you have to take action, make it demonstrable, make it deterrent, but maintain the sanctity of what we have in India. That's what they want to destroy.
Okay.
And the
One
same
small
people who
tidbit.
say,
Pallavi, just a small
the
tidbit,
same
friends.
people who say that terror has no religion are also the ones who spoke about something called saffron terror. So let's not even forget
Yes.
that.
Exactly.
They also
Pallavi,
talked
one of our
about
friends,
Chidambaram.
Pallavi, Rajdeep Sardes has written that I given up on Aman ki Asha. That's a very positive change.
No, sir, he did not.
I
He
just
said
heard that
he has not
small.
given up on Aman ki Asha. He said, I feel defeated that nobody is listening to my call for Aman ki Asha. He has never
Okay.
said he gave up on Aman ki Asha. I tweeted that video about 5-6 days back, where just 1 week before he had gone to Harvard or something, and he was calling for a Span South Asian channel, and he was
He went with
asking for
Rahul Gandhi, not Harvard.
Did he? He traveled with Rahul Gandhi now? That's what he's doing?
No, I don't think so. But I think they were all at the
No.
same place, Brown
They're at the
University.
same place.
Incidentally.
But what has happened is he
By
called
coincidence.
for a South Asian TV channel.
मुझे क्यों
And
नहीं
he
कोई
wanted
बुलाता?
investment to happen, and he wanted this TV channel to be jointly run by all the politicians of South Asia, basically calling for funding, because India today ki bahut fati padi hui hai. At this time, not having nationalist anchors and having people like Preeti Chaudhary and Rajdeep is not very good for your channel. You see, nobody wants to watch those two sniveling online. Gaurav is the only one holding fort out there, unfortunately. So there is that. The second thing I want to point out is, have you noticed no real A grade guy has come and said the usual talking lines this time? Not even Rahul Gandhi. It's the B grader in the family, Robert Vadra, who's had to open his mouth. It is all the third rate. There is some roadie big bossia who's opened his mouth. Something Verma. There is that failed script writer, some Darab Faruqi or something like that, who opened his mouth. Casting couch graduate. Then there is this. The funniest was this news laundry so-called Hafta. With that fellow who looks like he's got AIDS. What's his name?
Stop. Don't say things like that. Abhinandan Sekhri, and he does not have anything like that.
But he looks like it. So that fellow and that sidekick of his who's married to a congressman who never talks about it, but then talks about media ethics. The cockeyed Maya princess. So you know what happens with those two is, they called my old boss Manoj Joshi. He is trying to explain to them that this is not an Intel failure, and Manoj Joshi is not even right wing. He then says, I went in 2007 to Kashmir and it was all just fine. There was no terrorism happening at that time. There was no insurgency happening at that time. And his own panelists, all left-wingers, are so shocked. They're trying to show him the statistics. Statistics kya hota hai, bhai? This is what they're down to.
Now to the
third raters, none of the A-listers on their side have opened their mouths about this. Have you noticed?
I want to ask a question, and whether if I can, Sandeep and Abhijit, a lot of people who talk among us, like not journalists, that I just mix up with them, they keep on telling me that, Pakistan nuclear country hai, so how can we take action? Is this a deterrent? And I mean, can we just set that record straight? Because a lot of people who are not journalists and common man, na, unke dimag pe ye baat dala jata hai.
So it is true that nuclear countries have never really fought a war with each other. The first person to break this and show us, when we went nuclear, we wanted to take this whole notion of war off the table permanently. Pakistan showed us that it was possible to fight a war under the nuclear umbrella. And that was what Kargil was about. They are the ones who showed us the template, bhai. They are the ones who said it can be done. They have opened the can of worms. Ab khud bhugto jo khola tha. And we've seen this time and again. You can actually take very significant actions. See, they came up when correct me if I'm wrong, Sandeep, but who was the general who came up with the 4 thresholds? He used to be the head of their strategic forces.
Khalid Kidwai.
Kidwai. He came up with the 4 thresholds.
Yeah.
There was the spatial threshold, which depends on how much land the Indian military takes of Pakistan. The second was the military threshold, which is how much of their forces you destroy, after which they'll go nuclear. Then there was the economic threshold, how much of their economy you destroy either through blockade or directly through bombardment, after which they go nuclear. And the fourth was the water threshold. Now, let's just walk all of these through very quickly. Say the water threshold. We've stopped the Chenab waters. Have you struck us nuclear? No. You know why? Because it is not a proportionate response. You will automatically be seen as the aggressor. If you blow that dam up, the person to be most affected will be you, because the entire flood water is going to come down on your head. Okay. Now, say we build a new dam. At what point are you going to blow up that dam? When we build the diversion, when we actually let the water through the diversion, well, we haven't stopped the flow then how are you bombing it? See, because this goes into the fundamental legality of war. You can only take preemptive action. You cannot take preventive action. This is a very important rule of the jus in bello, law in war. When a dam is being built, till the actual water is stopped, you cannot bomb it. Once the water is stopped or about to be stopped, if you bomb it, you're the one that gets screwed the worst. So the water threshold is not a feasible red line. The second is the economic threshold. What is the economic threshold? You're already bankrupt. Today, money they've just borrowed about $1.5 billion again on the international market. They've bought gold. Now, for that amount, you can only run a war for 3 days. Their reserves, and they do not have the money, Advaita, to run a war for more than 3 days. So technically, as per their economic threshold, they are already at the point where they can use a nuke against us. So the economic threshold is also not viable. The third is the military threshold. Again, now, what is that threshold? Even with a nuclear strike, because precisely, and see, this is why, there's a whole set of papers that came out. Oh, India shouldn't do massive retaliation. Now, understand, people keep quoting this sort of document that all these experts put out after our nuclear test to say this is the doctrine. That is not the doctrine. It is the cabinet note of 2002 or 3, I forget what it is. That is the actual Indian nuclear doctrine, which very clearly says massive retaliation. Now, precisely because of massive retaliation, Pakistan fundamentally has 2 choices. Either they bomb us the very first time with everything, which is in response to building a dam. They have to blow up all our cities and all our military works. Or the second is, if they use just one bomb at one place, India will retaliate with 100 nuclear weapons. So what do? You launch a signaling strike. What is a signaling strike? You fire a nuclear missile out into the Bay of Bengal. You declare a NOTAM. and you fire a nuclear tipped missile out there, which then blows up over the Bay of Bengal. Karo, and then see what happens to Pakistan. Do you think it's going to get away without sanctions? Do you think they can afford sanctions right now? What do you think is going to happen to all those army? Because all their army officials are dual citizenship. What do you think is going to happen to those dual citizenships?
There was some conversation about jets.
That's why I said, no, economically cripple them.
Yeah.
That's what even India is working on.
So what
Other
we're
countries
Okay,
can
listen.
also sanction ho jaye. Okay, I think it's more than a
No, Abhijit, there was some conversation about private jets exiting Lahore, flying out of Lahore, and it was being said that this is all the generals and they're basically their families being shipped off to London. How true
Look,
is
I
that?
believe the army chief is missing. Is that true?
Yeah, his family is missing. It's safe.
his
A
family is
lot
missing.
of soldiers resigning. That's true, Sandeep.
Not
Yeah,
A lot
there are
of
some
officers
reports.
resigning.
Yeah, there's some reports. I'm not sure how authentic they are, Ratanji, about. I've seen that. But, just to add to what Abhijit said, Advaita, the fact that how Pakistan has used this entire nuclear ploy, and I think many of us in the media, the strategic community have also fallen prey to this. The fact is that, you cross the border and there will be a retaliation, nuclear retaliation, Delhi will be, all of that.
Exactly.
So this whole nuclear weapon bogey that's they keep raising, and this is something that they do every time there's a terror attack in India. Pakistan says, "Oh, there will be a nuclear war. Please come and intervene, stop this war between India and Pakistan." But what has happened actually, Advaita, is where there has been a change in Pakistan's mentality after 1984, which is when they are believed to have got the nuclear weapons from the Chinese, and what they have evolved is a very very sinister strategy, which is Uday Bhaskar calls it nuclear weapons enabled terrorism, NWET, which is the shield of nuclear weapons protecting the sword of terrorism. And they've used this sword against all. They have 4 neighbors. They've used it against 3 of those neighbors: Iran, India, and of course even Afghanistan. Even the Taliban are upset with the Pakistanis. And now what we've actually shown since 2016 is that there is tremendous space between the nuclear threshold or even an all-out conventional war for retaliation. And what we've seen in 2016 with the cross-border surgical strikes, with the air strikes in 2019, and now possibly, what shape it takes in the next couple of days, who knows. But I think the government has kind of realized the present security establishment, national security establishment, has realized this tremendous scope for retaliation under the nuclear threshold or even that of conventional war. So in the past, you had prime ministers being deterred by this nuclear weapon. 2 or 3 prime ministers have actually, when it came to the decision of striking back at Pakistan for 26/11, for instance, that one big thing in the room was, oh, but Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Oh, they will throw those weapons at us. And this is the time when the whole world was actually behind us after 26/11, and the government chose not to respond. They chose not to initiate those airstrikes, even symbolically. They did nothing, and they lost the whole thing, and they possibly lost the elections in 2014. One of the reasons for that was 26/11, the fact that they didn't retaliate, and that is going to go down as one of the black marks in Manmohan Singh's.
I personally took a political turn after 26/11 and the inaction. Yes. So, otherwise before that, because I worked in hotels at the time, and it really hit deep and very close to home. I lost people in that attack, and just the inefficacy of the government of the day just appalled me. So I think there are a lot of people who have been who've shifted or felt differently about how we treat our own country and our own people who are killed in this brutal way. I mean, this was, I think, a betrayal of the people who died in that attack in the worst possible way. So
absolutely,
yeah, that
was a turning point, and Pahalgam is going to be another one. I feel this is the way things are moving, and it's the Pakistani army's perfidy is being called out now, and I think this is not going to go down well for either General Munir or the Pakistan military.
So MIB has come out that don't share too much about movements, troop movements, things like that with the news channels were running. So I just have a question to ask you all from our perspective also. Should we be discussing what the government of India can possibly do going into the future, or we should just not discuss that?
We can talk about it. The issue is never to give out specific movements till they are.
So we can talk about like the options and things like that without.
But they are also, and none of us know the specific movements, right? I mean, no one is going to tell us from the government.
This is all
I think a lot of us know what's going on, and it's just best that we don't communicate. I mean, we have friends.
Yeah,
right?
but what I meant, Sandeep, is, I mean, no, I think I put it wrong. What I meant is that kitne aircrafts hain hamare paas, deployment and all of that. I think maybe we should avoid
all
that.
That is known. All that is known. So strengths and all, it's deployment.
The way the channels are saber rattling, Sandeep, that I think is very irresponsible. The way are saber rattling, creating all the tamasha on the screens, that is very in a very poor taste, and just keeps people on the tenterhooks. Doesn't serve any purpose.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Whole thing about jung hoga, war. I know my society ka WhatsApp group. People have started saying, "Arey, kaam karo, start hoarding, chawal rakho, ye rakho." As if kali ladai. You never know, kal subah hum uthenge, ladai shuru ho jayegi. That is not correct. They said, "नहीं, बिल्कुल होना चाहिए," and you know, I mean, no, I don't think that's the right thing to say, because we don't know. What I meant, Sandeep, we don't know when the government is going to do what it's going to do, right? We'll only come to know maybe after it's done, or I don't know.
What we do know is that what we do know is they're definitely going to do it, do something. And on YouTube, there are astrologers saying that keep money for 3 months expenses in your home and things like that. I said, have you seen that 2 lakh limit? You know, we're just going to be inviting even more trouble. Trust me, I've been there. So don't do that. But
you have more than 2 lakhs at home, Advaita? Wow.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I had a brief moment when I did, and I had people knocking on my door. So it's okay. I'm never going to do that again. But I'm just saying, you know, I mean, it's just getting a little too much. So I get what Ratan Shahdaji is saying, that we don't need to have this kind of saber rattling and things like that. I mean, what has happened is, of course, devastating. And
see, the Prime Minister's One Ki Baat, you guys must go back to listen to it. It was, for me, it was even better than what he said in Bihar. It was calmer. And he spoke for, you know, it was a long One Ki Baat. I think he spoke for the first 4 to 5 minutes. Very brief, to the point. And the way he said it, ki kathor kadam jawab diya jayega, which I got it wrong on Twitter, but kathor jawab diya jayega. And nyay hoke rahega. I think very menacing words, but to the point. And again, no saber rattling. Hum ye karenge, hum wo karenge. Aisa nahi hai. Like that Bilawal Bhutto went on and on about na khoon baha denge, khoon lenge. You don't have to do that.
But listen, I think Bilawal.
But you saw Hardeep's response to it, no? It was hilarious.
What did he say?
He needs to get his brain checked. Something like that, he said, yeah.
The brain
very
checked.
Calmly.
And he said he needs to drink a glass of water.
but I am going to say this, that Bilawal Bhutto looks like he's been on Ozempic, okay? So
I'm sure he has.
Ab wo kya karega? Bechara, for his political survival, he has to talk like that.
He's definitely on drugs if he's rooting for the Pakistan army, which has killed his grandfather and his mother. If he's going to root for that army, and this is the same strain. Asim Munir is a part of that same strain. He's the third Zia Bharti chief, right? Yeah. After Rahil Sharif and General Bajwa. He's the third guy who came in the reign of General Zia, who killed his grandfather in the most brutal circumstances. And, you know, it's bizarre. So he's definitely on something.
But see, the thing is, can you imagine what that poor boy has to go through? He has to protect his family and its interests. He literally has to work with the people who killed his grandfather and his mother.
Absolutely.
And pretend as if they didn't, and pretend as if they're protecting the country. Imagine what a horrible situation it is. Can you imagine what's going through that boy's head?
Yeah.
Okay, the club
and
is
you know,
like
Julia wants you to dance with Bilawal, Abhijit. He's giving you $20 for that.
we're lightening up now, guys. We had a heavy show today, so we're going to miss out.
With Bilawal, Abhijit, not here. With Bilawal.
But isn't this Munir character the one who had like a really vulgar conversation with Imran Khan's wife on the phone that was leaked? And he's absolutely despised. Yeah. I mean, I'm tracking the Pakistani media for a while. Yes,
But
yes.
How could
With
Abhijit lose it? Abhijit, that's bad on you. How
Imran
could
Khan
you
must be
miss that?
happy that he's in jail.
I know. I'm judging myself, sir. How could I miss this?
Yeah, because Imran Khan had an ego clash with him when Imran Khan was prime minister.
Oh.
So they have some personal animus, and he spoke to his wife, Bibi, whatever Bibi, something
Bushra
Bibi,
Bibi.
right?
Yeah.
Bushra Bibi. Yeah. And it seems he used abusive language and spoke to her in a very degrading way. AIM, this thing, it's in Punjabi. I don't understand it. But it came out months ago, 6-7 months ago. But it was supposedly Ratan Sharda ji will know. He's Punjabi.
You send it to me, I'll translate for you.
No, I don't have it. I mean, I just saw it at that time, that it was doing the rounds.
No, Abhijit will find it anyway. It is too juicy for him.
But this guy's a real character. I mean, he's a real, vulgar character.
Yeah.
So,
Pakistan, bane of Pakistan is this Punjabi army trying to control the
yeah, the generals. What do they call them? General. How do they pronounce it? How? General.
No,
General. Okay. Oh, yeah. Our resident Punjabi. General. Generals.
No, general. Why?
Journal.
Yes.
Journal.
Jarnail.
Like, journal. I'm writing a journal. It's like journal.
Journal.
Think of yourself as a Ghati saying free press journal.
I don't read the free press journal.
Okay, bye.
Hello, ji, bye.
Pallavi, thank you, everybody.
It was a good conversation.
And also, just do share this video. I think it was important. I hope to have some of you back to discuss this further as things progress. And Abhijit, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to say Pallavi Ghosh is the prettiest damsel I know.
Sandeep, there's a backstory to this.
Oh, okay.
We shall discuss this over
Pallavi, I was distracted by a poha-colored wall.
Okay, there's a backstory to this also. So, guys, we'll have it over poha.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll catch you soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.